I'd like to start off, Elisa, Kimberly, and Julia. I would like you to introduce yourselves because you're going to do it best. So why don't we just start off with the brief introduction?
Okay, let me start, I guess. My name is Elisa. I am an audit associate at JP Morgan for 2 years now. I graduated from Baruch College in 2019, and I was actually an intern at the SIFMA Foundation for a number of years while I was attending college. So, you know, it's always good to come back and give back, as I was also involved with the stock market game when I was in high school, playing the game as a student. So I'm excited to be here and share my experiences and how that impacted my career going forward.
Thank you. Kimberly?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Rookwood, but I just go by Kim. I'm an account manager at Broadridge, which is essentially the intersection between our clients with my firm. I've been with the company since roughly 2008, and I graduated from Monmouth University back in 2012. Similar to Elisa, I played the stock market game back when I was an intern with my company. So it's just been exciting to see how I've been able to leverage that knowledge into the trajectory of my career.
And Julia?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Julia. So I am still a student actually. So I am a junior at the University of Southern California studying business and cybersecurity. And last summer I interned at AIG in their investments division. And this upcoming summer I will be interning at Credit Suisse in their technology banking group. So very excited for that, and was a stock market game alum as well, competed in high school, and that was one of the reasons that I decided to go to business school for college. So very excited to be here today.
Oh, excellent, everyone. So let's start off, and we can keep with the rotation if that's all right. We'll start off with Elisa. What skills did you develop early in your career that led to your position now?
I think one of the skills that actually came into mind that I was able to develop while working, doing the stock market game was working on a team. I think I really enjoyed the aspect of working together with my peers, you know, doing research and making decisions, as I think that is an important skill to have that you will carry with you throughout your future, into your college education, into your professional career, as well, as that is something that no matter what you do, you will have to encounter.
Kim?
Stepping into my internship, it was definitely a huge evolution coming from college into the real working world. And it really exposed me to understanding that there are various components that I would need to build on for my foundation to be successful, whether it was insights into understanding the business or just understanding how to maintain an SDLC and carry a project forward. So specifically for me, I kind of wanted to handle it in by component. So firstly, I knew I'd be communicating and public speaking for various points in my career. So I actually participated with an organization called Toastmasters, which focuses not only on public speaking, but just communication. And that skill has permeated throughout the entire life of my career, 100%. And if that's something that you would be interested in, I definitely suggest checking it out. And then besides that, I of course wanted just the functional understanding of the business as well as my firm. So I sought to obtain series licensing specifically for operations, the 99. I studied for my 7, just to help again maintain that foundation that kind of just carried me forward. I mean, I can talk days for days on just little one-offs I've done here and there, but those two are extremely significant in my mind that really kicked me off. I'll stop there.
Okay, and Julia?
I can help. So I'm still early in my career, I guess by any metric, but I think one thing that's been really valuable and one thing that I think I'm still working on, and that's been useful for all the different work situations I've been in, whether that was in a finance internship or just throughout school and daily life, that I think I learned or started to learn when I started looking at the stock market and doing the investment in the games, was understanding the way that I approach problems and the way that I make decisions, and really understanding what drives me to make certain decisions. And that's something that's relevant for whether or not you're investing in the stock market, investing in something else, or just trying to decide what you want to do with your career, which is the position that I'm in right now. And I think just starting to have that introspective look in how does my mind work, what are the things that are important to me, and how can I use those values and what drives me to accomplish what I actually want to accomplish.
Excellent. And I'd like to tell Kimberly that I also belong to Toastmasters, but it wasn't until after that I realized the importance of communication. It took till I got a job, and it was actually as a stockbroker, and I realized I really need to brush up on this skill, and then I joined it. So I greatly encourage students to work on their communication skills. It's necessary in every career that you go into. Okay, moving along, kind of in the early stages of your careers, I'd like you to tell me what, and all of our attendees, of course, what set yourself apart from others when you were going for your position, and of course, Julia, it would be for your internships. So what set yourself apart?
In my case, since I graduated fairly recently, I think something that started becoming a trend was gaining work experience very early. So getting an internship when you're in college, when I was speaking to some of the people that I was working with when I was interning, said that that was very uncommon, when they were going to school, but now it's almost expected that you have an internship before you graduate with a bachelor's degree. So I think that using any opportunity or seeking any opportunities that you find relevant to yourself, and placing yourself in the environment that you maybe are considering, or that maybe this is something that you want to do as early as possible, so then maybe that can in the future set you apart from other candidates, but also for yourself to be able to realize, is this something that you want to do for sure, or is maybe as early as possible, you still have time to tweak it or change some things. So I think that that's definitely helpful to do as early as you can.
Excellent, thank you. And Kim?
I would definitely agree with Elisa's comments. Specifically for me, I played a bit of the long game, just kind of taking it back 50 steps. In my specific role, being an account manager for our clients, this was historically a position that was really granted to folks with many more years experience, maybe a larger skill set than myself. So back when I first joined my company, I was like, wait, I really need to establish the foundation of myself and kind of figure out my own yellow brick road to Oz, to kind of gather all the various skills and components that I felt I needed to be successful in whatever endeavor that was. Coupled with that, it was honestly realizing the value that I already had in myself as an individual. Like, no one could teach me to be me besides myself. And really heeding to the advice of a lot of senior executives that I looked up to, they really reiterated that point, meaning you have to not try to change yourself to be this component of this person that you think you need to be, but stay true to yourself, but work hard, raise your hand when there are maybe situations where people don't want to do the work, and just constantly just kind of thrive in the challenges ahead of you. So specifically how I set myself apart was really rising to that occasion, was hopping around my company, trying different jobs that maybe it wasn't for me, but I knew in the long term was there for me. So when I got to the point where I eventually landed in this role, just looking back at kind of the timeline of what got me there, it just exemplified not only like my tenacity, but how adaptable I was and willing to learn. Because at the end of the day, we can all be taught functions, but I think those soft skills folks don't focus on enough, but they're extremely important to take you far in life, not just within this industry, but just in life in general.
Oh, excellent advice. Thank you so much. This is so valuable for our attendees. I really appreciate it. And Julia.
Sure. So I don't know if I can top those two answers right there, but I think for me, just based on the feedback that I've gotten from people who ended up becoming my bosses or the people that interviewed me for internships, I think one of the most important things was that on my resume, I found a way to demonstrate that the things that I was applying to and the internships and the jobs I wanted to work at, that I had a genuine interest in those things. Since I think it's pretty common just within college and from what I've seen, especially in business schools, a lot of students kind of just file into the same sort of career tracks, but don't necessarily actually care about those careers or those jobs, and ultimately end up kind of being burnt out or not really enjoying what they're doing since they just kind of do it since that's what the business school curriculum teaches you to do, or that's what everybody else around you and your friends are doing. So I think just being able to actually have my resume there and having my track record all the way from high school, it's like, oh, she's been interested in finance and investing in these topics since she was like 15 years old. That means she's actually, she's done something with it, she's pursuing something. And I always get questions whenever I go in for an interview now. I still keep my little stock market game thing in my resume under like the accomplishments, and people always ask questions about it. I think every single interview I've had. So that's definitely something I would credit with it. And on top of that, I think just being able to articulate clearly why you want something and how it fits into your life and why you actually want to pursue a certain path or a certain job, since a lot of the times I think it's difficult to actually figure out exactly what you want to do. But being able to actually have an answer and being able to actually articulate that to people is quite important, I have found.
Yes, and I can see that the three of you are excellent at articulating that. Was there a particular aha moment that you had in your career that you knew you made the right decision? Or with Julia, you while you're studying, I just know I feel comfortable here.
Maybe I will let Kim go first on this one.
Absolutely. When this question initially came across, I kind of had to do the exercise in my head of reflecting over the past 3 years in this role, because I've had so many instances where I'm like, oh, this is why I'm here. But I think the first one that stuck out was maybe 3-4 months into the role. And prior to that, the previous hat that I roll was more product development. So I was kind of still in that mindset. Anytime I work through an issue, with this specific scenario really helped me. So going into the scenario, I was catching up with, I think it was the CIO for one of my banks. And he was just like, Kimmy, the moment that I knew you were the right person to cover my account. And I was like, oh goodness, like it could be so many things. What was it? He was like, we were on a call and we were talking about a project, and there were various approaches that we could move forward on. Some were just more amenable from a cost perspective, some from a timing, so forth and so forth. And I remember someone from my team suggesting going through an approach that, yes, would make us realize our goals sooner, but I knew in the long term just wasn't the right avenue for us to pursue. And before I could open my mouth and articulate that, I just remember you jumping into the conversation and starting with saying, with all due respect, I think that's a bad idea for this moment in time. And it clicked, and I was like, yes, she has my best interest in mind. She understands my business. And I know moving forward that this is going to be a great partnership. And I just want to say that I appreciate you for that. And I was like, wow, just kind of getting off the line with him and just kind of collecting myself and just thinking about that situation. It really brought to light that all of the efforts that I've been accumulating in my career just to prepare myself for that moment to say in confidence how a client should proceed with something and just handling it with just directness and grace. It really gave me that, yes, you're exactly where you need to be, Kim. Just keep doing what you're doing. Something's working, right?
Oh, that's a great story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Anybody else? Any other aha moments?
I can hop in. I think for mine, mine's a little bit different. It's not as much of a singular moment, but going in through, like when I was little and through high school, like for the longest time, I always thought that I wanted to be a lawyer or a journalist, and always saw myself going into, I guess, one of the more quote unquote humanities type of fields and doing something that would allow me to write and speak and a little bit more people oriented as the stereotypes go. But when I got to college and initially went into business school thinking, okay, I like finance, but I'm going to explore other things too. I'm going to check out marketing. I'm going to check out perhaps working in HR and all these different opportunities and things that were out there. But I found that I would go, I would look at something, I would learn about it, but somehow all of the roads kind of kept leading back to where I had initially thought and where I am today. And kind of just through the constant repetitions that I'm learning about one thing, and I think, oh, like maybe my skill sets are better for this thing. But then finding out just through either talking to people or working on something or these different experiences, finding out that the skill sets that I thought I had that would apply to something else are actually something that makes it really valuable in a different field. So for investing, for me, being able to write and being able to explain things or kind of more technical terms, perhaps in kind of common speak, I found that that's something that allowed me to stand apart in internships, and things that I thought would kind of push me away from that sort of industry are the things that made me stand out. So it's sort of just that constant reaffirmation that, okay, maybe there is a place for me within this industry and there's a place for me to stand out.
Absolutely. Awesome. And you're going to be a rising star. We all feel it. Lisa, do you have anything?
Yeah, those were two very excellent answers, but when I'm thinking of an aha moment, I view it as something that kind of catches you off guard, like you were comfortable, and then it's something that forces you to be like shaken up or to realize something that perhaps you had a blind spot on. So for me, I think there were several moments in my educational and professional career where every time I feel like um, I, reached a goal or I have checked off an objective, and I want to relax. I want to, feel like, um, kind of serene and at peace. There's always a moment that comes after that kind of pushes me to do something more, or kind of shows me that this is just the beginning and there's a lot of things to be done. So this concept of lifelong learning and never really being able to stop in your development or professional education, I feel like that's a moment that always catches me, that kind of pushes me to move forward.
Okay, thank you so much. That was excellent. Now, the next question I'd like to ask is actually for our attendees. Now, we know that you cannot give investment advice, but how about we reframe it? And if you were to start the stock market game, kind of looking in hindsight, subtracting just giving investment advice, what would be the first steps, knowing what you know today, to just getting started? Maybe we can just talk about more, the problem solving type steps. Who wants to kick it off? So knowing what you know today, what is advice? Just, say like on research or problem solving or so forth. Not giving an investment advice, but just overall how to kind of approach and so forth. Is that okay to ask?
I guess I can start with something. So, looking back and what I know now, I think some of the advice that I received when I started with that is still really good advice today as well. And it's sort of just start with investing in what you know. And I think there's a quote, I think it's from one of the investors on Shark Tank, I think like Mark Cuban or someone, but basically saying that like they won't invest in anything that like any food that they can't even actually taste themselves. And I think when you're looking at the things around you and the companies around you, as a consumer, I think you also have your own perspective on what companies actually have products that are valuable and things that people want. And obviously, when you're looking at an investment, you have to look at more than just, oh, do I like them as a company? Do I like their products? Since, as we've seen with some of the market movements and happenings over the past few months, not everything that happens in the stock market is entirely logical or based on a good investment from a financial perspective. But I think especially for students who are looking at the game, start with things that you're interested in. For me, I was super interested in politics and international relations and trying to follow geopolitical events. And if you're interested in those sorts of things, there's lots of ways to express that in the market through different securities and different ETFs and things that you can trade. So I think it's kind of just figuring out what you know the most about and then exploring what the options are within the things that you know. And then once you feel like you have a good understanding of whether or not those things would be good investments, if that's something you want to learn more about, then you can start branching out to other things based on things that you read or people that you talk to or things that you learn about through the beautiful wide internet.
Okay. One of the things that I'm doing in the class, my SMG in the classroom, is I'm talking about having an open mindset and an open financial mindset, and to allow your curiosity to explore. So that's playing off of what you said, and to research, to learn the skills of research. And so does anybody want to expand on that, just in the research skills, how important it is?
I was just going to say, Julie, you knocked that answer out of the park. I couldn't align with your answer anymore.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Is there a particular book that you recommend, or YouTube channel, or a blog that you follow that you could recommend?
I guess I can go and to kind of preface this and go retroactively, everything that I have said and will say at the event today are my own views and have nothing to do with you know, the views of the firm, as I'm speaking on behalf of myself. But someone that I have enjoyed kind of following, especially when I was in college, I don't keep up so much anymore, was Gary Vaynerchuk. He's one of those, I'm not sure if the ladies on the call are familiar, but he's like an entrepreneur that has really made a fortune on giving advice to people who are searching for a career or searching to find themselves, and especially younger adults. So I think, and he also visited our campus, and he also was invited by JP Morgan to one of our events. So definitely a lot of exposure there too, but someone that I would recommend checking out.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, that's actually so funny you mentioned that. One of my really good friends and her twin sister actually have interned for him and kind of worked on his PR stuff. So that's actually funny coincidence. I think for me, when I'm just looking for things or like things I followed, I definitely like reading the Wall Street Journal, and they have a bunch of newsletters that you can sign up for. So every morning when I wake up, they have a million, but there are a few on the markets that are kind of looking at what's going on, maybe from like a bank's perspective, like with SPACs and IPOs and all the things that are happening there. And then there are some that focus on the more international side of the markets, what's going on in different countries, the news, et cetera, et cetera. So I found those to be really helpful in addition to the Morning Brew and all those other kind of like techie finance news newsletters, which are pretty fun and pretty easy to digest. And I think in the past few months, I've been getting a little bit more into it, but I have found Twitter to actually be a very interesting place to see the opinions and the views of a lot of pretty prominent investors. I think the venture capitalists are pretty active on Twitter, to say the least. And I think with those things, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And a lot of them are kind of chasing some Twitter fame as well as sharing their opinions. But I think it's definitely an interesting way just to expose yourself to other investors' opinions and kind of see how other people view the markets, whether that's the public or the private markets, and get a good idea of maybe little things that the main news may not have picked up on, or getting little tidbits on different technologies or different companies that are up and coming. That's been super interesting.
Excellent.
Absolutely. And if you want to keep it a bit closer to home, you can always leverage the information that's available from your brokerage account or from your banking. A lot of the times for my clients, I'll just go to their website and just see, hey, like what's new in your world, what's new in the industry, what strategic endeavors is the retail space, the institutional participating in. So it really can be as quick as a Google of Charles Schwab or JP Morgan, just to see what's important to them in the current space and how it potentially impacts you as well. So just to make it 10,000 feet, just a little bit lower and just more accessible, that's another avenue you can pursue if other ventures are just a little bit too much all at once.
Excellent. What is a typical day like for you?
I guess I'll start by saying I literally have no typical day. Yeah, it's fun being the jack of all trades. Essentially, just to kind of give just the overview of what I do. When I maintain client relationships, it's not just from a day-to-day where there's a problem, Kim, how do we fix this? It's more of a, oh, Kim, I'm looking to start offering my clients fixed income settlement. How do I establish that within your ecosystem and have it integrate with mine? So my day can start with a call at 7 a.m. with my counterparts in London, figuring out how to efficiently organize kind of our ecosystem to create output that would be utilized by our clients, not only from a tech perspective, but from an operations. I could have a contract renewal for a client who has been with us maybe for 10, 20 years, and this is the first time we're actually going through that formal engagement of figuring out, hey, these products and services, are we going to keep the same of what we had? Are we going to remove? Are we going to add? Is there going to be changes in pricing? How did your volumes look like for the last 5 years? And how is that going to impact any decisions that I make to present forward? Or it could be as simple as, Kim, you gave me this $20 on this invoice. This is incorrect. Can you fix that? So it can be something as small and mundane as that to something huge and extremely strategic from a partnership perspective that I just kind of roll the dice every morning, just saying, hey, okay, what am I facing today? So it's extremely exciting, and it's really nice to not feel like it's the humdrum of a monotonous day-to-day. And I feel like Elisa spoke on this comment that I really resonated with. Early in my career, there would be points where I would get very comfortable in a function, meaning I knew it from soup to nuts. Those are the points where I knew, okay, it's time to go, it's time to learn something more and to kind of add to my breadbasket. Being in this role, you have 50 different skill sets that you need to leverage from. That's super challenging, but it's exciting and it's fulfilling. So I definitely talked in circles on that one, but I feel like it all kind of married together. Yeah, my day-to-day is definitely a bit exciting, but yeah, I'll stop there. I'll just keep going.
Your day sounds fascinating. I'm sure many students would just, gravitate. They'd want to be in your shoes. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Yeah,
Elise?
it definitely does sound very fun. But as I was studying accounting for my bachelor's degree, when I was expecting to get a job out of college, like I would be fine with something mundane, I was expecting to be working with the ledgers and the accounts, but I was happily surprised when I remember asking the same question of what is your day-to-day like when I would be going to networking events or, hiring events that were organized by the school, that within audit specifically, it's more of the job itself is audit based, which you can think of as project based. So every single project is unique of itself, and you have to look at it from a holistic viewpoint where there's never two of the same audits. I think you can look at it that way. So I was happy that I would never have to work on the same thing more than once, which I think is important when this is something that you come into work to do. You want to keep it fresh. You want to have that element of, because that is something that pushes you to learn something new. When you do the same thing every day, um, it does become a little it can become mundane. But I actually also heard that some of my teammates at work say that they move jobs every 3 to 4 years. Some people like that's what keeps their brain working. So I think the stereotype of the banking world or the corporate world to be a desk job that's a 9 to 5, it's more of a stereotype than the reality. So it definitely helps to talk to people and to attend events like these to get to know more from the first person perspective.
Yeah, I mean, as a college student, it really, every day is different as well, aside from your classes. We have our set schedule for those. But I think within college and when you're doing recruiting for your internships and such, it's definitely, there's a lot less structure surrounding you than there is in high school when you still have that support system. So a lot of it and a lot of recruiting, it's really just coming down to you. And you're the one that has to stay organized. You have to stay on top of it. You have to deal with all of the crazy things that go flying back and forth, since I guess once you're out in the real world, not everything always accommodates your schedule. So a lot of times it's just learning how to balance exams with recruiting, exams with work assignments, things like that. And I think as you go through internships, every internship is going to be different, just as every workplace is a different place. For my first internship when I was a freshman, I was the only intern on that team. So they pretty much kind of just threw me in the deep end, said, hey, we had someone who quit last week. You're going to take over all of his responsibilities. So I was there, like just turned 18 years old, and now I'm a staff accountant for this company. So kind of just had to learn how to do everything, and then found myself just integrating and doing the normal things that a full-time employee would do there. Versus at my last internship, it was kind of split between programming that was through the investments division and then actually working on the desk with my managing directors. So when I was working with my actual direct bosses, every day would be something different, and with them, it was a quantitative investing and an analytics team. So they were always trying to come up with new technology, new models, new things that they could use to make the firm more money. So there was always a sense of innovation there, and every day would be seeing how can we improve something, how can we make something better, how can we do something else. And then on the other side, they at least tried to keep us pretty busy and look at all the different parts of the markets and learning about different things. So whether that was a lecture or a group assignment working with other interns, every day was kind of different. And I think as you go through, sometimes you might get an assignment or some work that you don't think is the most interesting thing ever when you look at it on paper. But I think if you dig deep enough into anything, you'll find something interesting in it. So you just kind of have to keep digging.
All right, we have so many questions coming up. So one is from Kristen here. She says that it sounded like each of the participants had experience with the SIFMA Foundation via the stock market game, and how did that help you in your career in other ways? I know from my end, it's helped me personally manage, my personal finances, but it's also helped me with my communication skills just with my own family, and it's helped me to be better at technology. So I'm starting off, but we'll let you guys go.
Yeah, I was actually happy to attend an awards event hosted by the SIFMA Foundation, where the students that won the citywide and the championships, the stock market game, and other SIFMA Foundation programs awards event, and the students were able to speak at the event. And actually one of the students' parents had the chance to speak, and they said that through their student participating in the stock market game, the parent themselves, just were able to save up some money and invest it in the stock market, and actually made a six-figure return on their investment, which I was blown away to hear. But that is, I think, something that definitely a story that stands out, but it can impact, so the stock market game itself can have a huge impact, not just on the students, but on the parents and on your future. As I actually also remember doing a speech in my public speaking class in college about financial education and the effect that the stock market game has on the students, as without financial education, a lot of people do get into debt. They don't know how to manage their finances. So for me specifically, that was kind of my first ever introduction into the world of, you have this virtual money. How are you going to manage it? How are you going to invest it? As it's a little scary to do it in real life with your own hard-earned cash, but to have this amazing opportunity in school, I think is a treat for the students and for the teachers to be able to act as this gatekeeper for the students, and the myriad of financial knowledge and literacy that I think is a great thing.
Yeah, and I have so many homeschool signups this year, so it's parents. I have Girl Scouts, and it just warms my heart that so many are participating and signing up this year that are not necessarily the traditional classroom, that it really is open for everyone to participate. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Awesome answer. Kim?
I completely agree with Elisa's comment. It's been a little bit of a while since I participated in the stock market game, but definitely the exposure to financial literacy, which maybe wasn't as commonplace when I was back in school, was such a profound moment for me to really understand that this industry is so expansive, and that I have such an ability to be able to not only educate myself, but be able to equip myself from long-term planning, not only with investing, but eventually for my retirement and my allocation of funds and so forth. So I think it kind of transcended through various components of my life to not only promote just the education in this world, but to add additional skills such as analytics and planning and organization and communication that I've just taken with me and just applied to every other lever in my life that I keep pulling.
Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, I second all of that for sure. And I think, just from my perspective, the things that I looked at during the stock market game when I was kind of learning about the markets for the first time, and some of the securities that I looked at and the stocks I looked at, those are still stocks that I follow, and some of them that I'm still invested in. And I think one of the most important things that I learned that has been useful for all of my classes, all of my internships, is really just getting that start on understanding how the markets work, just even from a little sliver of it, getting that introduction to interest rates and the macroeconomic factors that go into things, and what does the natural gas report mean? How is that going to affect other things? Just kind of understanding, or starting to understand, all of those little moving parts and those puzzle pieces that go into making the economy run and making the markets move, and that essentially allow business to happen. Those were sort of the building blocks that I used in understanding other things through my studies and understanding the markets on a more complex level. And I think something totally unrelated to career stuff and kind of like the learning perspective was that when I actually came to USC, we were looking at the different clubs in the stock market. There wasn't really a stock market club or an investing club at USC. So a few friends and I were able to actually start like the first buy-side investing focused organization on campus. And now all the members are able to compete in stock market competitions that are very similar to what the stock market game was like. And we're able to actually spread some of that knowledge and kind of the interest in the kind of passion for understanding the markets and investing to other students, whom all have now been able to use that and leverage that for their careers. So that's been really rewarding, and I think a nice little added benefit that came from it that was inspired by the stock market game.
That's fabulous to hear. It just warms my heart. Thank you. Boy, I have so many questions. I hope you guys can stay on for a couple more minutes. So I'm gonna really shift gears here, but this is a real important question, so I hope you're ready for it. And it is, with so much uncertainty and inequities in a predominantly European male field, how does African American students find mentors? And I think we can also say young ladies too, and actually a lot of diversity. How do they find mentors?
I'll step into this one. I definitely can empathize with that statement, as I started in this world, oh my goodness, almost 13 years ago. And it was definitely humbling, scary, maybe a little bit overwhelming to see that looking around, I didn't see anyone who looks like me. I didn't have anyone that I could immediately go up to and be like, how can I be like you? So I definitely, before I kind of get into how I move forward, just want to speak to going forward now. I definitely have seen that change, and I try to be the person that participates in any kind of women's focus group, just to essentially be that person that I wish that I had. But taking a step back on what I did, I had to humble myself in the sense of recognizing that people want to help you. So you have to be an advocate for yourself. If you see someone that you would like to emulate, don't be afraid to go up to them, ask for a quick call. I know we're in a world where we can't do that, so it's going to have to be virtually through email, but you would be surprised at how willing folks are to help you, even if it's a quick 5-10 minute phone call. It doesn't have to be anything extremely formalized. It's just, hey, I've wanted to just speak with you to kind of understand, hey, like, what was the trajectory of your career? What did you found was the most important piece of advice to help you get where you are? What would you tell me starting in my career on what I should do? So succinctly put, I think reaching out to folks that you would like to emulate in your career or you respect and would want to seek guidance from would be my first suggestion. And if you're ever within an environment, a firm and so forth that has various groups or clubs that promote mentorship or growth, always raise your hand and go for it. I know specifically within my world we do, and I personally participated myself, and I found that it not only helped me professionally, but personally, because I know we have our buttoned up responses of how to act within this industry as well as others, but there's a human aspect to it that sometimes doesn't always get spoken about. And being a person of color, I completely get it. Just know that you're not alone, you're supported, and there's always going to be people around you who want to help, so don't be afraid to ask.
Thank you so much for sharing. Your insight is valuable. Thank you.
Of course.
All right, so I got this. Does anybody else want to add anything before I move on?
I think Kim articulated it perfectly, and
You did.
Yeah, I think just if sometimes you can't find anybody that you think looks like you or thinks like you or is from your same background, because finance can be very much skewed to certain demographics, and that's not really a secret within the industry. Sometimes if instead of looking up, sometimes you just have to look at who's standing next to you. And even if you can't find someone who's willing to pull you up, the people that are kind of there going through the same thing as you guys can build each other up as well and support each other and kind of figure it out together too.
Absolutely.
And I think a question that I got myself as a student many times was, you want to maybe speak to someone from the industry, or you would like to have someone to help guide you, but you don't know where you can find this person when, your day-to-day, you're just going to class, maybe you're going to some extracurricular activities, but it's hard to make your paths cross with someone from the industry. So from my other volunteer engagement, I've learned that there's a certain age a requirement that you need to register for LinkedIn, but once you're able to do that as a student, it's a great resource for contacting someone that you can find that went to the same school as you or same college as you, or someone that works in the field that you are considering. That it's always worth the shot to send them an email or a message on via the LinkedIn mail, and introduce yourself and maybe ask them the question that you want to ask them.
Thank you so
Valid
much.
point, because I've absolutely done that numerous times. So don't be shy. You'd be surprised of how willing people are to help you. You just have to put yourself out there.
Absolutely. I used to have LinkedIn as an assignment, and then I had to kind of stop because of the age difference, and I wish they would bring that back. So thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Very valuable insight. All right, we have a excellent next question, and it's, love the title of the webinar. What makes the panelists feel fearless in their careers and day-to-day job?
I'll kick it off. I kind of have a different spin on it. I know the title is fearless, but I can imagine that there's probably a lot of fear in what we do in our lives and our careers, because there's the potential to not be successful. So I definitely lean in with courage every single day, because courage is not being fearful, but recognizing that fear is there and still pushing forward. So I think really honing into that mindset with whatever you do in life will make you grow and evolve and just fulfill things you never thought feasible.
Thank you. Elisa?
Yeah, I have many thoughts that came into mind when I heard the question and when I was listening to Kim's response, but I think one of them was, I think it takes a lot of courage, as Kim said, to even choose that this path is the path that you're going on, and no matter what obstacles or what challenges you will encounter on your way, because it won't all be that smooth or easy, to keep persevering, persisting, and to not look away from your end goal, and to always if in a case of the imposter syndrome hitting you, just to kind of block those thoughts and say that you are exactly where you're meant to be. As sometimes some of us do get that that fear or the inkling to start comparing yourselves to others around you, and just to remember that you should only compare yourself of today to yourself of yesterday, and that's how you truly measure your the growth that you have achieved.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, she said that perfectly. I think probably imposter syndrome is something that everybody experiences, and something that I definitely experience whenever I'm starting something new or in a new opportunity, that I think to myself, oh my goodness, how did I even get chosen to do this? Like, this is so amazing. And I think sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in, when you start getting everything that you've been working really hard for, sometimes you freak out and you think, oh my goodness, like something has to go wrong now. Like, it's just how it has to be. Just kind of, since if you're more anxious like I am about things in the day-to-day, that kind of tends to be where your mind goes. But for me, I think it depends on the day what I tell myself. But when I look back at the things I've accomplished and the things I've managed to do and the things that I'm proud of, I know that when the moment comes where I have to step up or where I have to do something, I know that in the past I've always been able to perform. and that I've always been able to actually do what it was that I set out to do. So even if something that's coming up is uncertain, or it's something that's making me afraid, or something I'm nervous about, I know that I've been in situations before where I didn't know what was going on, or I felt like I jumped in the deep end, and I knew I came out of the other side of those things. So kind of just having that faith in yourself, knowing that even if something goes wrong, even if something doesn't go how you planned it to go, knowing that you'll be able to pick yourself up and get yourself to the other side of that at the end of the day. And I think if you just need a quick confidence, fear busting boost, there's always great music that you can listen to and have your own little pump up session.
All right, thank you so much. And we possibly just have time for, unfortunately, one last question. And it's from my coworker, my wonderful coworker, Vinny. And he actually wrote in a couple. So I'm trying to, let's see. What inspires you in your pursuits?
Fearless females in finance. That I have become acquainted to, that I have become very close to throughout many of the internships and experiences I've had. So definitely the support of other women is something that lifts me up when I need a little pick me up.
That's lovely. Awesome. I can totally relate. Kim?
What inspires me is honestly just the human connections day to day, just the people I'm exposed to, the stories that I'm told, the cultures, the diversities. It's so, oh man, it's hard to articulate how much it hits home to not only be able to help people in a very objective kind of manner, but also to be able to integrate myself into their life in a way that I'd never even anticipated. Because of course, what inspires me for my job is to make sure that myself, my happiness, my family's happiness, like everyone is going to be taken care of based on what I put my efforts into. And I just didn't realize that it would organically trickle into every single relationship, professional and personal, I have in my life. So human connection at the end of the day, that's what inspires me, just to get to the point.
Julia?
Yeah, definitely. I think both of those things as well for me. Being able to look around and see all the amazing things that other women are accomplishing is definitely something that makes me sit there and think, okay, I can do that too. I want to do that as well. And just the idea that obviously addressing that there are still a lot of issues within the financial industry and within the country and kind of the world as a whole with the way that people from certain groups are treated and the way that people are forced to move through the world. And knowing that a lot of those things are institutionalized issues, and those are issues that are upheld by the people who have traditionally always been in those positions of power, knowing that I and other women can one day be able to actually replace them and work from the inside to actually change those things. That's something that's really inspiring and something I hope happens.
Yes, and all of our attendees, all of our young SM&G, of course, some of them are just a few years behind you, Julia. And I'm so excited because I feel this was just an amazing webinar because of the three of you. And I can't thank you enough. So thank you, and thank you again, Kim, Lisa, and Julia. You were absolutely amazing, and you touched my heart today. So thank you.